Good evening, Kansas City. Thanks for tuning in to our second virtual Dia de los Muertos program in partnership with the Mattie Rhodes Art Center and One Kansas City Radio. My name is Paul Gutierrez, Director of Programs and Events, and it's my honor and pleasure to introduce you to Jenny Mendez this evening, who will have a conversation with three families on how they're building their altar this year during this time of COVID and time of pandemic. Jenny?
Hey,
Hey,
how are
Jenny. How are you?
you? Good, good. How are you doing? Happy to be.
Good.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much for your time.
Thank you so much for the invite for sure.
Of course. Hey, Jenny, I want to have a quick conversation first before you introduce our families about the altar we built this year and how it looked very different than years past. This would have been our seventh annual Dia de los Muertos celebration in partnership with you all, and it looked a little bit different. Can you tell the audience what we did different this year?
Sure. Well, since we can't gather and have a ton of people in here the way we normally would, um, we knew that we still wanted to do something. Normally, we would have about 20 or so. Some years, I think we've had up to like 24 altars in our space, and being able to still do something, and it's very important more than ever before, I think, to be able to give that back to our communities. And so we decided to hone in on a particular family. So we did a personal invitation to, right now there's 5 families that are represented in our space. And especially because I knew most of them, I think all of them actually, and being able to have a personal connection with knowing that they recently lost a loved one, especially during this time of pandemic and of course COVID. So it was really important to be able to connect on that and connect to these particular families.
Great, and I love that this year the Kansas City Museum still hosted something that was safe and outdoors. I love the idea that we came up with of making our altar a little bit more rustic and dedicated to the lives lost due to COVID-19. So I think that was special. I think, in particular, that it was a nighttime viewing, which we'd never done before.
Yeah, that was really just special. I mean, so many people that had walked up to the space, to the altar itself, and seeing it at night, it was neat to see the transition of time period of the altar, when in the golden hour, when the sun was going down, to be able to see the lighting on it was just like perfect. And then the comments that people made that it felt like being in Mexico at a cemetery, it's something that you might see. And I know that was the original idea and look that you were going for, and then just making it a reality and being able to have that feel with the candles, the flowers, everything, and then the smell of the incense, the copal burning. So all of that was really important, and I think we were able to pull it off really well. And the nighttime part of it, was just a different way of viewing it. And it wasn't like last year when we talked about doing it at night, that was even, we didn't know that a pandemic would happen and that the times would be so different. So I think that was very, just a different way of being able to give something different to the audience that we were, really hoping would come out, which they did.
No, I love. We got great feedback, and hopefully everything will be well next fall in 2021. I think we'll offer again a nighttime viewing of the altar. The wind was a challenge because of the candles,
Yeah,
but towards the end of the night, I think all the glow and the scent and the mariachis that were playing, I think it was a good combination of actually being in Mexico, which you've done during Dia de los Muertos. Is that right?
yes, I've been very fortunate to be able to go to different parts of Mexico to really experience it firsthand and see the random parades in the streets, to actually seeing altars in people's homes, to going to the cemetery, and really all of your senses are being just used, or just, it's amazing to smell, to see it, to feel all of that, and being a part of it. So being able to give just a little bit of that has always been my goal of wanting Day of the Dead to be an important part of the things that we provide here in our space, but then even within your space and our partnership, is really important to be able to spread it out throughout Kansas City. And what better place than at the Kansas City Museum, and being able to have something there in historic Northeast neighborhood.
Right, I agree. Jenny, throughout the program, I'll be seeing if people have any questions or comments in that comment box. So if you do have anything, please drop them below. Jenny, something that came up when we did post this event is the difference between calling it an altar and an ofrenda. Can you shed some light on what the difference might be, if any?
Mm, I think it's just really how people want to, I guess, connect to it. Traditionally, of course, if you're in Mexico, you're doing an ofrenda or an altar. So, of course, I think it's just really the idea of Spanish to English and being able to understand. A lot of people understand the word altar and what that means, and then what is an ofrenda, and then the Spanish translation of ofrenda is like an offering. So I think just the word that we chose to use this year when we were talking about the particular installation, there's another word, installation that we were able to do there at the museum, is that we were more referring to it as an altar, but both are used. And I think even within our space, it's an ofrenda dedicated to, or it's an altar dedicated to.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Before we begin, I give over the screen over to you. Just I'll let people know that this program is being recorded. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Also, that this program will be available on a podcast thanks to One Kansas City Radio after. In our website as well, there'll be a link to view this program as well. So thank you, Jenny, and I'll have you take it over, and I'll manage some questions, and I'll chime in if we have any.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Best. Okay, thanks. All right, our first family that I'm going to introduce, you guys come on, is the Bustamante family, and they will talk about their grandmother and this wonderful altar that they put together. So I'll let them get into place. And you can kind of see where you guys are at, so yeah. So whoever wants to start off, and you can move if you need to on either side, and just talk about what the process was for you all, and of course your wonderful grandmother, and talk a little bit about her. And yeah.
So we come from a very large family. My grandmother had 13 children. There are over 100 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren. So we were blessed with the opportunity to do this. My grandmother was 96. She passed away on August the 4th, and August the 5th, sorry. And it's been difficult for all of us. She's someone that she's the matriarch of our family. She's, for most of us, was the only grandparent that we had living for a long period of time. So our grandfather passed away in 1980. And so she's been our only source of historical information for our family. She's been the source of guidance and everything for our family through prayer, teaching us about the church and raising us in the church. And we were fortunate enough, 3 of us grandchildren that are here today, were fortunate enough I was blessed to be able to be raised in her house under her guidance. My cousin Marina lived next door, so it's interchangeable, the houses were, and we spent a lot of time with my grandmother. Marina's kids spent a lot of time with my grandmother as well. So you'll see some things on the altar that represent who she was to us and what she enjoyed. So we brought a deck of cards. She taught a lot of the grandkids in our family how to play cards, gin rummy, war with the little kids. She took no prisoners. There was no letting the kids win. She played and taught them how to play fair. And you win, you lose, but you don't get it handed to you. So she was really strict with her cards. She loved her birds. So she had a bird feeder outside. She fed them every day. She had birds that flocked to her. And we also put some rocks up here next to her bird cage because she kept those for the squirrels that ate her bird food. She would just toss little pebbles at them just to get them to scatter from her bird food. So we have a lot of things on here that represent who she was and who she still is in our hearts. This is actually a photograph of her actually talking to her birds. She was yelling at the squirrels and probably yelling at my mom to put more food in the bird feeder. So, pardon?
Friday night dinner.
Yes, and so my grandmother had a tradition ever since I was really young, that we had dinner every Friday night. Everybody was welcome. If you could make it, you could make it. If you couldn't, we'd still be around. So if you had to come late, so she cooked, and she cooked probably all the way up until probably about 7 or 8 years ago when she stopped cooking. And that was hard for us. It was an adjustment to see her in a different way because we had been so used to having her being very active and very involved in everything. And she got to a point where she couldn't cook anymore. And it was too much for her. So we took over, and we did a few Friday nights after that, but it was too much. So we missed the Friday night dinners. But they were a source for all of our cousins. That's where you got to meet everybody on Friday night, your cousins. And our cousins are our best friends. And that was what my grandma always wanted us to be. Family was the most important thing to her. It was love, and it was your cousins, your uncles, your aunts. We were all very close to each other, and we grew up like siblings. I grew up with Marina. She's just like my sister. And that was something that my grandma wanted to reinforce in all of the grandchildren that came to her house. And you could go to her house, which we actually have a picture of her home. So her house was everything to her. Her parents had this home first, and then she was living there taking care of her parents. And so her house meant a lot to her. And then this is her chair. You could walk into her living room at any time. Usually she'd be sitting in her chair. She'd have her Mountain Dew, and there's some scratch-off tickets because she loved to do the scratch-offs, and her Bible, and her apron, of course, with Kleenexes, and her back scratcher, which she loved. Just a lot of things that this is really who she is. And her lamp, which she meticulously picked out. We went shopping for it because her old one went out. So it took her a while to find the one she wanted, but she got it. This is everything that embodies who she is. She loved all of her grandchildren, all of her children. She enjoyed spending time with them, playing cards with the little kids, just talking to them. They sat there, they would draw with her. Pretty much anything they wanted to do, my grandma was game for. So she would do anything they pretty much asked her to do. Any game they wanted to play, she participated with them. So she had a love of ice cream and all sweets. She had big sweet tooth. We have an ice cream cone there that one of my cousins or nieces actually painted for her. There's the music, so she loved Vicente Fernandez. So we have some concert tickets here that when she went to the concert to see him, she saw him every opportunity she could get. Before he came to Kansas City, he didn't come to Kansas City for years, so she would go to Chicago with one of her cousins that lived in Chicago, and she would go every year faithfully to see Vicente. So we have some of his CDs.
And making dinner on Fridays, you'd walk in her kitchen and Vicente was playing loud and she's cooking away and singing away.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah, anything else to add that you like, just even, whatever you can add more about what's on the altar, but even just the process. How was the process for the family as far as, I know I had heard some stories from you all just about the little kids to you, but even just personally, how things worked out for you all.
I think it's been very helpful. I think it's brought us even closer, which we've always been close, but it's helped us. For me personally, I think it's helped a lot because trying to do it at home, it was getting hard because like I took the pictures, so like getting the pictures and I was like, oh, I start crying, now I'll come back to that, I'll do that later. But it was more exciting when it was the three of us working together to do it and like, oh, well, let's make sure we add this, let's make sure we add that.
Yeah.
And then like even driving down here today, it was like, I'm excited to come because it's like she's sitting here with us
Yeah.
because it is so her.
Yes.
So it's been very therapeutic.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
good.
it's been
That's
very
so good.
therapeutic.
I think just losing her, so freshly losing her,
Mhm, mhm,
this was a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to celebrate her
mhm.
and celebrate who she was and to let everyone know who she was and celebrate her my grandmother was actually more of a private person, so I don't know that she would have loved all of this, but I think she's looking down and she's seeing all of her favorite things.
Oh, yeah, it's good.
Leaving the night that we actually set it all up and we had the kids here with us and they were helping and they were so in tune with everything that my grandmother represented. So everything that we put up here, the kids had a say so, and don't forget to put the rocks up there for the birds. They all know who she was and they were able to, and I think it was good for the kids to be here and to do that because they had a say so, and I think it helps with their grieving as well. It's been difficult for all of us, and this was very helpful to us. It was a great opportunity for us to celebrate her as opposed to the mourning that we've been doing.
Right.
Since August, we've been mourning the loss of her and have been feeling the loss of her at her house. It's been empty and it's quiet, but this was a way for us to kind of turn around some of the mourning and actually celebrate her life and who she was to all of us.
And all the kids that were here between Marina's and my two boys, she was there for all their births as well.
Yeah.
And got just as excited for each one of them being born as she did for any of us. I mean, like she would be so excited when any of the kids were born. And she was there for all of our kids, both my boys.
My youngest, and him and my grandma played Coco game at the house. They loved playing it, so that's why we brought it up here because their mom would watch my youngest, and he looked forward to going over there, and he still struggles. There's every now and then he comes up and says, "I miss mom," because we call her mom. I miss mom. I miss her too. So he was excited that her Coco game. Once I explained what the friend that was, you know.
Well, that's good. I have one more question and then we'll have to move on, but I know between the transition, there may be some questions for you all, even though we'll move to a different, there may be something that you might want to answer. But one more question would be just real quick. As far as the pandemic goes, which has been just this crazy time of unknowns and all that, how did you all, as far as, I mean, if you could speak a little bit on that, just how was that different? I know you've never lost your grandmother before until now, but still, it's such a different time period.
It hurts a lot because we stayed away so she didn't get sick. We organized a parade one day, you know, drove up, had cousins come, we were honking, she was outside, and we all waved to her, but it was hard because she's our everyday. My mom lived next door, so going over there, we just waved, my kids would wave through the window. So to me, I felt like this was like one of the worst times because we lost so much time already to try to keep her healthy. So.
Yeah, no.
That did make it extremely hard. It was especially for the younger ones because they didn't understand. You know, like my boys would FaceTime her, but they would say, "I want to go to Mom's house. Let's go see Mom." They didn't understand. You know, my youngest one did not understand. Like we can't go to her house. We have to keep her safe. So that made it extremely difficult. I mean, we did sneak in for her
birthday, we did break our rules, but
on the porch.
Rules are made to be broken, so
we still
We did. We went for her birthday. It was May 2nd, and we went to her house and we brought a little boom box and we played Vicente for her. And we brought in some tecate, which she loved, And we toasted her on the porch, and we all drank a beer and played music. And I always say, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have kissed her that much more. I didn't, we were social distancing, so we weren't kissing her, which was hard for us because we're a family that hugs and kisses. And as soon as you walk in her house, she's the first person you kiss, she's the first person you hug and you talk to. That was always the rule, like you don't walk into anyone's house and not say hello to the person that owns the house. And so my grandma, she was there in her chair, and we'd go in, we'd kiss her and hug her, and she missed that. She missed the contact with us and being able to hug and kiss us. And so if we knew then, we would have, on her birthday, I would have smothered her face with kisses that day. But it was great. We were able to celebrate. The pandemic robbed us of time with her on a regular basis. I mean, I was over there once or twice a week to see her. And that was the difficult part, is not getting that extra time, because we didn't know what was ahead. And had we known, we would have just gone over there as much as we could have. So that's been the hardest part.
Yeah, and I can't even
It's the time.
imagine. So that was perfect. So no, we really appreciate being able to have her. She was first on my list when I was thinking about people to invite as far as being a part of the altar, but I also knew too that it could have been too soon for you all, but at the same time, what a great way to be able to help the healing process. So I hope that was, which I think everybody,
It has definitely.
so
It
good.
helped us to
Oh, it's so good. Well, no, this has been great. Even though I'm sitting here crying, at least the camera can't see it. But we're gonna move to the next one, and then. Paul, I don't know if you had any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, family, for sharing that and being very vulnerable to our audience and allowing us to hear your story with us. Jenny, as you transition to the next altar, in building an altar, is there traditional things that you put on an altar, or the different tiers? Anything you can tell us about building
Yes,
up an
of
altar?
course. I think a lot of the traditional things to incorporate on an altar, for sure, one of the main ones that I always talk about when we're giving tours, and especially teaching young people, but all ages, honestly, of course, is to have the 4 elements of the earth. Very important. We do a workshop prior to on a regular time period, but we did do it with this group of people too in our space this year. But being able to give all these things, right? The resources and the what are the symbols for different items that you want to make sure to put on the altar. But the 4 elements of the earth, so earth, wind, fire, and water. And those 4 elements, are seen in many different cultural celebrations throughout the world, not just for Day of the Dead, not just for the Mexican people, but the 4 elements. So normally what you would make sure to put are the papel picado, which represent the air or the wind element. You might see a bird or a butterfly that would also help in that symbol to make sure that that's represented. The fire would be represented by a candle or the incense, and copal is the incense that you would burn during this particular time. And then the fire, or did I just say that? I said fire. Earth is represented by the sipancichil, or the marigold flowers that they have a very unique scent to them, but at the same time, their glow and the color is what is also said to bring the souls back to the living during the days of the dead. So very important. Anything though of the earth, sometimes you might see a little vial or a little bowl of dirt, that somebody would put on the altar. A clay pot is from the earth, so that would be, of course, could cover that. And then let's see, I said earth, wind. No, I didn't say wind. Yes, I did. The fire and water is to have a glass of water on your altar. The water, of course, is for the idea that the souls do come back, and they're going to be traveling so far that you'd want to have a drink for them. So having the glass of water, the water will evaporate in the time period that it's sitting on an altar. So it's as if the souls have come back and drank from the glass of water. So lots of really good things that make you feel good inside, that you can see a lot of these symbols, like the butterfly, the monarch butterfly. In the state of Michoacan, the butterfly, that's where the butterflies end up after their long travels from Canada all the way through the United States in their migration. And so the idea that the Mexican people believe that on the wings of the butterfly carry the souls of the loved ones coming back to be with the living. So when you see a monarch butterfly, it's something really special, and you know, especially if it's hanging around you. So making sure that all these symbols are important. The tears on the altar are important because it shows the different levels of life and then death. And then if you have like a archway, that's the next life, you know, the pathway into the next life. So there's lots of different things that really represent many traditional things that you would incorporate into an altar. The photographs, making sure that there's things like the family mentioned, anything that reminds you of them, or their personal items, you know, that really represent who they were. Those are all very important.
Great. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, you're welcome. And our next family is the Tinoco family, and this is Rose, representing another big family here on the west side of Kansas City.
Okay, my offender on my altar is dedicated to my family, my immediate family. You know, we lost my brother at a young age, Michael, at the age of 23, you know, 75. You know, he was into cars, he was into, you know, so I got cars, and my brother Albert was into cars, and they would drink beer, and they got their mugs of beer that they had, and they were all into sports. And I made my pumpkin with the Tinoco family, and then I got my plaque with, my house is your house, and my mom always welcomed anybody. My dad always welcomed everybody. We have so many adopted brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, you know, that's your brother, that's your sister, you know, different shades of colors, you know, we go, oh wow, you know. But my mom was a home. She made a home for everybody, and she was a caretaker for everybody. She cared for my grandparents until they were deceased, and she helped with weddings and receptions. She taught me how to do the mole, how to make tortillas. I would have to come home and have fresh tortillas right at her middle school. I had to rush home and make tortillas and have dinner started. So I kept the generation of the cooking. So, you know, we had our Sunday dinners, you know, and, you know, that was our way of letting the family know who was family, you know, and your cousins. And, you know, as we grew up, our older cousins stuck more together now because the way we were brought up, you know, the generation now. And then we have my sister, who passed away a couple of years ago, my sister Gloria, you know, and, you know, that was kind of hard. You know, it's hard when you lose a family member, you know, my mom's been gone a long time, but, you know, it never gets easy. You know, when you have, you know, she liked the casino, so I made a little casino, and they went to Vegas, and like I said, this year was really, really hard this year. And then I have my nephew that passed away in a car accident at a young age, you know, and then I have another nephew that had cancer right out of high school. He graduated, was not able to, you know, continue on. You know, he died at a young age at 18, you know, and but this year was really, really hard. Like I said, you know, my dad was the last of our family, you know. I took care of my dad. My mom's been gone for 20 years. So I promised my mom I would take care of my dad. So I would take care of my dad, and we still had our family dinners. I would make Sunday dinner just so we could have our family together. You know, who comes, who don't come, won't come. And you brought up my dad loved the fiesta, so we would go to San Antonio. We would go to Topeka. My brother David played in the band, Los Estrellas, so we followed him a lot everywhere. And he was real proud of his heritage. He would wear his Mexican beads, and then, you know, he carries his cow, my brother, and he was well known in the community with baseball. My brother Michael played ball, my brother Albert played ball, he would follow a lot of the community baseball, like Los Amigos and everything. And he had everybody's ball cap. And whoever would win, he would switch his cap, you know, he'll go to the other side. And when the player was they were always so mad at him, you know, because he would get at them with how, oh, the man's wild, you know, he's throwing the pitcher, you know, he's wild, and tell him to sit down if he struck out. But, you know, they all loved him, you know, and they even gave him a hat, which, you know, now that I'm cleaning out my dad's house, I'm running into a lot of things that he had. So when I saw the hat that said, sit down, TikTok, the man's wild, you know, it brought, you know, what he meant to the community. And then you brought a thing to me that you remembered him with his card. My dad had all kinds of saints on his card, everywhere. I mean, you can't even see the dash, the window, you had to look, he had all these saints on his thing. And so I brought a few of the saints that he had on his card as I was looking through his stuff. And my son, when he was growing up, you know, he wanted to go to a school activity, and he said, Mom, you think Grandpa will let me borrow his car? And I said, I don't know. Grandpa's kind of, you know, don't like people driving his car. But my dad said, yeah, you can take it. So then he's seen all the saints, and he, like you said, he was saying, oh, Mom, he's got all these things. I can't go to school with all this stuff. So he took them all off, and he came home. I go, what did you do? You can't do that. I said, you gotta make sure you put all those back the way he asked, because he's gonna know that you took those saints out, you know. And then, like I said, this year was hard. We lost my dad right at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, and we had to rush his funeral service. You know, we had, that was when everything was shutting down. He was going home to be on hospice, and my sister-in-law came in to say hello to my dad, you know, because we were able to have visitors right that day before we left. That was, everything was changing. And she's been on dialysis. She's been having trouble with her kidney. And she always went to Mexico. She took care of her mom and dad, in which she lost her mom and dad this year. You know, they just buried her dad, mom, you know, a couple, 6 months between each other. And, you know, I always told her I loved the Day of the Dead, you know, because it brought more meaning. And then when Coco came out, it brought more of a meaning of what, you know, people would say, why do you have that? I said, well, it's a spiritual, you know, thing, and bring them back to life. And even though you get all these signs, you know, of what's happening, you know, they're with you. But from the love and my heart and soul, I wanted to, you know, bring them back, you know, to spend another day with them in spirit and life. But like I said, she came in today. My dad was going home to be on hospice on the 17th. And she was all excited that she was able to, she had a donor for a kidney. And so then she went in to have her surgery, and then there was complications. She ended up passing away. She passed away when we were taking my dad to church. You know, we got the news that morning that she ended up passing. So, you know, so that was kind of hard, because her kids couldn't go see her. You know, it was during the lockdown. You know, they had to call the hospital, see how she was doing. And they said, oh, she's doing fine. You know, but then she had complications with an infection, and she ended up passing away. So that was really, really hard, because then we couldn't do nothing for her. We had to wait until just recently, when they just barely had her services, service for her. Because our family's big, and it was only allowing us 10 people, you know, which was hard. My kids cried because they go, Mom, you know, you can't go see Grandpa, you know, and, you know, it was hard. I said, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, you know, we have them in our hearts, and I said, we'll do a celebration of life. That hasn't happened yet, but we're still planning celebration of life when everything comes back. And then Imani, you know, we just lost her the 2nd of September. And my sister raised her, so she's like a granddaughter. My dad, you know, always sees her with her nappy hair, you know. And my sister, you know, anyway, she was in a homicide when they found her shot, you know, and then she was 18. She just had her birthday, the 18th of September, so we ended up, they were able to have services for her. But my altar is, you know, my family and, you know, of my brothers and sisters and my sister-in-law and my nephews. But, you know, my mom, we were into the faith. We went to church. Grandma, you know, our grandma's always had us in church. Like I said, my dad loved the music. You know, like I said, we always listened to my brother, travel with my brother. And what we had planned to do every 5 years, we were doing our birthday party for my dad. So when he had his 75th, we had a birthday party because we didn't have our mom. So he had his 85th birthday party, and that's the picture of his 85th birthday party. And you know, when he was talking about, you know, he had been in and out of the hospital, and when he said, "Oh, when I, you know, pass away, I'm gonna have a big old party," you know, and we were not able to do that. That was what was so hard. You know, we were wanting to give him what he wanted. You know, he already had said who. You know, he had bands coming from Texas and stuff and all that stuff. So we were planning a birthday party for him when he was getting sick. My brother had said, "We're doing a birthday party," and he had a couple people from 10th Day come in to sing for him, play for him, and you know, we blocked our street, and we didn't think we were going to have a whole, you know, the whole block. I think
It was a party.
The whole community was down there, but my dad was well known in the community. He was like a legend in the community. And, you know, like these older parents that we have that's been around, a lot of people, you know, who's your grandparent? And when they say Albert, oh, sit down, TikTok, they were, you know, saying, you know, what he's little saying. But this is my family, like I said, and I enjoyed the Day of the Dead, and I, you know, like I said, this is out of love and you know, I just and as I said, it's like it was really hard this year because we weren't able to have anybody help us do. I mean, they all picked out things that I put on an altar that they had. They said, "Well, put this up there for Dad, put this up there for Anthony," you know, and you know, but you know, like she liked tea, McDonald's. She always was at McDonald's, and Valerie went to med school every year, you know, and we were planning to go to med school this year, you know, because, you know, she wanted to go down there for, you know, one more time after she got her dialysis to celebrate that she was able to do that. And my dad was a Missouri fan, Chiefs fan, so, you know.
No, you did a great job. I mean, it's hard when you lose somebody, especially just in general, but then during the pandemic. And I know that what I feel that your altar is, because you've done altars before here in our space, and this year I know it was different. So you really covered it, all the different things about how it was different during this time of the pandemic. But I mean, I wanted just to add that I love how I mean, I can only imagine how difficult it is because you just lost your father not that long ago, along with so many other family members through the years. But being able to really show all of them, you know, it wasn't just for your dad, it was for everyone. And I think you've always been great at being able to incorporate everybody. But I don't know if there's anything else, like as far as you personally, how this was helpful for you this year?
It's helpful for me because, like I said, you know, when you lose someone, you lose you lose part of you. And to go through them and bring out the memories, it makes you, you know, you come back alive, you laugh about it, you cry about it, you laugh about it, you get mad about it or whatever. You know, there's always, you know, like my brother, you know, when I was thinking about when I was going to school. You know, if he saw me with a media that, you know, when you sit down and have tear, he would rip it and I would walk home crying because he tore my media bigger than what it was. And he would laugh about it, you know. And my brother Albert, he always made sure I had what I needed. You know, he would always call and check on me, or if I needed something, he would always be there, you know. And, you know, my brothers and sisters, they, you know, they thank me every day. You know, they say, "Sister, thank you for, you know, doing what you did and keeping our family together." You know, like I said, I still do the dinners, I still make the, you know, and tamales, you know, we get together and still do our tamales. You know, that's what Mom, you know, Grandma and everybody had taught us to do. And our Christmases and stuff, you know, our house is little, but you know, we fill it up, and you know, if you get up your chair, you lose your chair, you know, and you know, so yeah, it brings, you know, a little closure to you, like, okay, you did this and they're looking down at you and saying, thank you for remembering me. And, but, there's things you don't forget, so that, the memories and the love and the respect and the strength that they taught you, to go on, and, to like family's everything, your family's everything, she goes, my mom always said, regardless of who you are, who they are, it's your family, it's so, she taught us a lot, growing up, and she corrected us and, I mean, if you try to run, she'll grab you, she'll get you later, but yeah. But, she was well knowing too, when she passed away, we had a real big funeral for her. We didn't realize how big, people thought, who is that lady, who is that lady? It was just, because we have a big family, but.
How many children did your mom and dad have?
We had nine.
Nine.
We had 6 brothers and I have 2 other sisters. But, like I said, it's big, and like I said, everybody has more kids, so, my dad was, you go to my dad's house, if you gave him a picture, it's on the wall.
Oh.
There's pictures of, like all the kids that graduated, everybody that got married, all the quinceaneras, and,
right.
and birthdays, and people would send him Christmas cards with the picture. And
there went on the wall.
But people come and they admire that, how he expresses his love for that. And, but yeah, you go in there, if you give him a picture, it's going up on the wall. And like I said, he loved, he loved the baseball, he loved the Royals. And so my niece went to KU and he was a Missouri fan. So then she had to tell Grandpa, hey, Grandpa, you're going to have to give up your Missouri and we can't
right.
do. So then they started buying a divided flag. So he'll put his flag out there, Missouri, KU, and then he's got Raiders and Chiefs together. When the Chiefs played last weekend, I said, oh, I got to go find the flag. So
go find your flag, yeah.
For my dad.
Well, no, you did such a great job, and I know that we were happy to have TikTok a part of this year's celebration. But then the rest of your family, of course, means a lot, and especially to this community. So happy to have you. And I know you're carrying it on. So that's all we can ask. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. We are going to move on to the next one. And if you have any questions, Paul, for us.
Yes, Jenny, I have a couple of questions. Sarah asks, can you explain the cleanup process afterwards? Is there a proper way?
I think it would, there's really no, I wouldn't say that there was a particular steps to it. I know when we've done larger installations, say at the Nelson Atkins Museum or even there at the Museum, Paul, I think we've even shared kind of this idea. But even here, when we've done something where we've had like a wall, if you do a memory wall where people can write messages, that becomes a little bit more personal. And when you're taking that down, that's a little bit different than just taking an altar down, because when I have done many altars through the years, and it is somewhat a process, but I don't think there's anything that we have been shared with others to follow, right? But I think it's all about how people want to personally reflect on their altar. So maybe as they're taking it down, they're kind of, if there's other family members involved, that it's kind of done in a way that is respectful to the loved one, really. But as far as any personal things that I would do for someone else, like the memories that people write, we have gotten many, many memories, like whether they're done on little sheets of paper or on, like I said, the banners. And we've burnt those before just to kind of offer them up, right? So that the idea that they're going somewhere else and that they're no longer with us here on earth. So that's the only thing as far as that I could say is there's some type of a process or a different way of dealing with the completion of the altar and put it. It's almost like when any other tradition, how you put things away, so that's done in a very respectful manner, wrapping things up, making sure that things are set, and whether you would do it again next year or whether you would take the things back home and place them where they belong again. So yeah, I think that answered.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Another question, Jenny, that came up is people might be confused as to why we're celebrating Dia de los Muertos so early, being
Oh
at
yeah.
first week in November. Can you explain why Mattie Rhodes starts on that first Friday in October and ends on that first Friday in November, and what that really means to some people?
We start early, and our tradition has been for the past 22 years to do the first Friday in October, so it allows us to have many weeks to be able to provide educational information and programming for the greater community. The idea of school groups coming into our space to be able to learn about what the Day of the Dead is, and we've had school groups come from as far away as 3.5 hours away, and a lot of the school groups that have come in the past have come from very rural areas of both Kansas and Missouri. So being able to provide with them, mainly Spanish teachers that want their students to have like the full range of culture, traditions, language, and celebration as part of their curriculum. So it's really important for us to be able to have this opportunity, so it's not just a weekend event or a 2-day event, that it's an ongoing event, and it does confuse people. It does confuse even our artists. Will say, I thought that was in November, and then we'll say, no, we need your artwork now, and then even asking families to participate, knowing that we're going to take care of their family members while they're here in our space for not just a couple of days, but for 6 or 7 week period. So this year it's a little bit shortened, only because we started it a little bit after that first Friday date, but we have plans to do other things on the November 1st Friday that are closer to the actual days of the dead.
Great. Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks. So now I can introduce Bonnie LaFond, who has an altar this year in memory of a wonderful mentor of mine, Leanne Perez. So it's all yours, Bonnie.
Hello. First, I would like to say I was completely honored that Jenny asked me to build this altar. My mom would be absolutely thrilled because she herself has had many altars here, and she was on the board here in the 90s. Now, if you look at this photograph, you can see a young Jenny Mendez and I standing next to each other because we painted those murals down on Cesar Chavez Boulevard, and my mom organized all of those. She got it, had this wild idea. My stepdad was on the Latin Union, LACLA, down here for many years with lots of different families in the area. My mom, after meeting with the ladies there in the Rayas, got this wild idea, we should probably paint a mural down here and do something neat. Well, that blossomed into like 7 or 8 murals.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was outstanding and such a great experience for us to do as children and young people, and it really elevated my awareness of art in the Latino community here on the West Side, and I just always felt really comfortable. My mom introduced us to the coolest art. She was always an artist her entire life. She was an art teacher at Kansas City, Missouri School District. In the 70s, she designed stuffed animals in the West Bottoms for Superior Toy and Novelty. So I had like the ultimate stuffed animal collection any kid could ever want.
Wow.
And but there was always some kind of art project. We always were doing something, painting, building, doing all kinds of neat little projects with my mom. The kids in the neighborhood would come over. We lived in Hyde Park on 38th Street, and we would do whatever she decided we should do. And we'd be all in, glitter everywhere, and it was so much fun. And then later on in life, she married my dad, and they split. Then she met the love of her life, Javier Perez, on the Metro bus. He was a bus driver, and it was during the gas crunch in the late 70s, early 80s. And she was like thinking he was cute, but he was always driving the bus. But then one day he was training somebody, and so he made this move, poop, poop, poop on the seat next to him. And she sat down with him, and they were together until the day she died. After that day. 40 years. So with that, that's how we really got involved with Latin art. Her house is a testimony to color, folk art, Mexican art, Day of the Dead, anything that is bright and interesting is in her house still. great unfinished paintings in her basement, fabulous oil paintings, as big as a wall. She was just an amazing human being. And with that, she just carried on her life with art was always a focus, She ended up getting cancer about 3 years ago. She went in, she was dehydrated and had the flu. And while she was in the hospital for that, she was like, hey, I got this little pain on my side. Well, they found out it was fallopian cancer. Well, ever since that day, it's just been downhill ever since. She went to remission twice, we had high hopes. And then last year on her birthday, which was September 2nd, she, I knew it was going to be her last birthday in 2019. I could just see it in her skin, her eyes, her pallor, the cancer was totally coming on to her. And so I just did my best to spend as much time as I could with her, taking her everywhere she wanted to go. At the end, my son and I would just go to her house and hang out with her. And I just felt like COVID wasn't going to keep me away from my dying mama. So I built this with her in mind because, I had this 8-track. This was like our soundtrack of our lives in the 70s. It was freaking Waylon Jennings, and she loved her country music back then, and it was wonderful. And then these were her boots, which I thought were really cool in her closet. Now, she didn't wear them that much, but when she did, she was very proud of them and was always saying, "You like my boots?" This book here was a book that she had of stories and nursery rhymes that her parents bought her, and it's dated 1950. And then she would read this to me when I was growing up, the same book. So that was a part of our life, big time, and the stories in there were huge for us. I brought her sunglasses. She always, in the last 10 years, she discovered cool frames from Ibot. So she would always be wearing really neat pair of glasses. I put up pictures of our family. What was really great about my mom was that we were able to get together with my dad and his wife and my stepdad and her. So we got to get together on the family dinners with both sides of the family. So there's a picture of her with my stepmom and the boys, the grandchildren at Easter. A great photograph of Javier and my mom, my dad, my brother and I. And then the boys were like the focus of her life. As soon as they were born, it's like her kids, who cares? I got these grandkids now. They're the ones that are important. And I honestly feel like she had such a bond with my son, Monty. They were just stuck to each other like glue. They did so much together. She spent so much time with him. Even her last words were to Monty. It was just incredible, the relationship. So another person that was hugely influential in my mom's life was Frida Kahlo. As soon as my mom discovered Frida Kahlo, that's where so much her inspiration came out of that. She just, you can tell, even her little apron, was fantastic. Everything she had was just so neat. And when I was going through her house, my stepdad hadn't touched anything. Even her purse was still on the bed that she was dying in. And so I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So I grabbed some, went around and started going through things. And her bracelets, man, she wore these all the time. I've always seen her wearing these. And, just little full part necklaces. She wasn't a lady that was into diamonds and gold. She was into something that was in color and outstanding. Cool, skirt Mexican necklace. She just would wear anything. And I went into her closet, and that was tough. And I saw all of her neat jewelry in there. But then there was a trunk. And I was like, well, what's in this trunk? She had a big walk-in closet. They live over on 33rd Street. I looked it up. It was just filled to the brim with these beautiful fabrics and serapes.
Wow.
I gave Jenny a beautiful embroidered cloth for that so she could have something of my mom's. And she these little tortilla holders. She whipped those out there down the table at dinners. She was quite an outstanding cook. She made the best pies I've ever had in my life. Her crust, I can't replicate it. at the end, I would bring her pies and make her treats because she loved sweets. And she'd always, try to pump me up and tell me my crust was just as good as hers, but I knew in my heart it was definitely as good as that one's crust. So it's gonna be tough this year. We lost her on May 27th. That was actually the day I was supposed to go back to work. The first day I was supposed to go back from work from being off work for several months from COVID. And so having to call my job and be like, man, my mom just passed, I can't make it, was hard. So I had to be off for a while. And it was tough. Even it took 10 days she wanted to be cremated. It took a long time to do that. We had to have a very small ceremony at the grave. We couldn't have at a funeral home. We couldn't have anybody, show up there. And even after the ceremony at her grave, people were still hesitant to come over and sit with the family because of COVID scares everybody half to death. So that was really tough. So I just tried to honor her memory. Yesterday, I went over to her house and cleaned up all the flowers I planted for her. And that was tough.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, it's okay.
that's the mom.
No, we appreciate you did such an awesome job, and I know that she would love it, right? You did her great, because I know it reminded me of an altar that she had done years ago, but with the hot pink in the back and the blue cross, right? And when I saw the
Well, this was her, she made this frame for an altar she did here, and I was like, oh, I'm using
yeah, you got to use it. Well, even the hot pink serape, when you use that on the back, I was like, yeah, that's it for sure.
She used that was like her big thing. She loved pigs, so.
No, and her house is just amazing. And I know it's like Javier had said, you had told me he had said that it's like a Leanne museum, right? And it totally is. I mean, and just filled with amazing things. I mean, she really opened my eyes to Frida Kahlo, to Day of the Dead when I was just a 14-year-old teenager, right? I mean, I mean, I learned so much from her, and that really influenced me in the work that I do to this day. So thank her and thank you for, talking about her. It was just great to hear all that.
You're
It was
welcome,
nice.
and I'm honored to be amongst you ladies.
Oh, that's so good. No, and I don't know if there's anything else. I know that we talked a little bit to each family tonight about just how did that, I already know the answer, but if you could just speak real brief on just how did this experience during this pandemic help you, or how was it different, or how, anything that I know you talked a little bit about that, but is there anything else you can add?
I just feel losing her during the pandemic was difficult because people were nervous to come over and see her. I mean, in her last 2 weeks, I knew she was going anytime, and so I'd reach out to folks and say, "Man, she's getting ready to go," but people were scared to come over. But I understand that, and then just having this to build was, cathartic to spread her life out, look at everything. She's here in all ages, from childhood to hot mom in the 70s, and she's in Seoul, Korea here working for the toy company. Just seeing her life in small capsules, but I feel like it was good for me, and I had so much fun making these the tissue flowers.
Right.
I want to do more. I think she would love that too. She would be right there with me making them. And,
yes.
I was thinking about stringing them and using these on the Christmas tree this year in her honor.
Oh.
And, so I think it's wonderful. It made me feel great about it.
No, and that's good. I mean, it's just good to be able to hear, because this is something so different this year than we've ever experienced. And for us here in our gallery and our exhibit space for Day of the Dead celebration, and to have all of the families be a part of it, it's just nice to kind of hone in a little bit on just that experience and what it was for you. So no, I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate you sharing.
I'm sorry, I'm emotional.
No, hey, that's what it's about. I'm, it is a little bit of that, the sadness, but then also celebration. And so no, thank you so much for being a part of it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I know it's been good. Paul, did you have any questions for anybody particular or for myself that we can add?
No, it was really wonderful to learn and listen to their stories. So thank to the three families who allow us to listen to their story in a way. We're all connected in our grief, loss, and healing is what kind of the theme that I pulled up, and hearing those individual stories. So on behalf of the Kansas City Museum, thank you, Jenny. Thank the families. Um, Thank the viewers for allowing us to go into their home. Jenny, if anybody wants to learn more about the Mattie Rhodes Art Center, where can they visit or more information?
Yeah, you can visit our website, mattierhodes.org, but then also check out our social media. We have different posts that have been going up in the past few weeks, and then of course the past couple of days too, including today. So we are on Facebook, and we are also on Instagram, and different flyers for different the virtual events that we're having. We have also set aside a couple of weeks that we will be taking visitors into our space. So, and those will be have to be scheduled so that we're keeping safety, protocol and health and safety protocols. So just look out for that information, because we'd love for people to be able to see in person the altars that are in our space, being able to give that feedback to the families that are part of it this year, I think is also a part of this celebration, is being able to hear what others have to say or want to say, or their response to them. I think over the weekend, we had done our own virtual of showing the altars to the public for the first time for this year, and I know one of the comments that were made was, that they were in their house but still crying because they felt so much emotion from all of the different altars that were here this year. And so I know that it does bring a lot of emotion up, but I know that it's an opportunity that we're hoping to get more viewers in, and making sure that people see the virtual stuff they will be having, but then also the opportunity hopefully to come check it out in person.
Well, thank you, Jenny. I've been working with you for over 10, 12 years. Thank you always for being so collaborative and partnering with the Kansas City Museum. And once again, thank the families again on behalf of us. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks to these wonderful families for sharing their stories and just celebrating life. And we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And the Kansas City Museum will have other Dia de los Muertos virtual programming. So please visit our website at kansascitymuseum.org. That's kansascitymuseum.org. Also, our Facebook page, our Instagram, and Twitter to find out more virtual programs coming up. Thank you so much. Have a good night. And as always, please continue wearing these face coverings and practice safe distance so we can get over this pandemic. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.